Hello and welcome everybody to another episode on Exponential Potential, helping you thrive through times of change. And today we have a fabulous guest, my co-host Claire Oatway. We are talking, we all this month we've been talking about leadership, and we've had some brilliant episodes, some really good, juicy conversations. And today we are talking about the ego must die. So it's a very candid conversation about leadership, self-awareness, and ego. And we're going to clarify what ego means. We're going to talk about how to keep your ego in check in your leadership roles, and how you do that, as well as the positive impact of self-awareness. Self-awareness plays such a big part in leadership, and we're going to delve into how that positively impacts your decision making and interactions with your team or colleagues, and as well as practices, strategies to continually enhance that self-awareness, and of course the importance of humility and willingness to learn from others. Um, and finally, how do you encourage leaders within your organizations to prioritize inner growth and self awareness? So it's a big topic and I love it. So, Claire, welcome, Claire. It's lovely to see you as always.
Hello, hello. Thank you. This is a big, juicy one for sure.
I think, yeah, all this month, all episodes, if you anything around leadership, and we're not just talking today, we're talking about leadership in terms of a role, an official role, although maybe actually we're not, maybe we're certainly talking about leadership within the workplace. Again, that
Yeah.
doesn't necessarily mean that your title is related to leadership.
No, no, no,
um
no. And it doesn't mean that there aren't elements of what we talk about that can't come through within your relationships, within your friendships or your family or in any voluntary work you do
mm,
or sports clubs, etc. So yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, so anybody that's interested in being more self-aware, that wants to make a difference, that wants to make an impact, stay tuned, and I really encourage you to check out the other episodes within this theme of leadership. So I'm going to introduce Claire because we haven't done that for a while. So Claire's a seasoned leader and transformational coach with a wealth of experience in leadership. Claire's dedicated to guiding individuals and organizations towards self-awareness, authenticity, and meaningful growth. Through candid discussions, she explores the delicate balance between confidence and humility in leadership, advocating the power of vulnerability and the value of inner growth. With a compelling blend of wisdom and practicality, Claire invites listeners to embrace self aware leadership and embark on a journey of personal and professional transformation. I love that. That's so you. That's just everything about you is in that. Well done.
See, now you're going to pump up my ego with it if we're not careful.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. And there is a balance. But I think as women especially, we need to own what we do, who we are, and some of the things that we bring to others. But there is a tipping balance. So we're going to talk about that right now. And many leaders, I think, I mean, you can relate, you can sort of speak on this a bit more, but many leaders really struggle with ego. Would I be right in saying a lot of, well, I would, whether a lot of women struggle with ego and finding the balance between keeping that in check in leadership roles?
Yeah. Well, it's probably helpful to unpack what we mean by ego first, and
Yeah.
it's so easy to see inflated ego like Donald Trump or Russell Brand in the press this week as a very strong ego, and so for it to be seen there's this kind of cartoonish, expanded, arrogant power sort of thing, but it yeah, and I'm not a psychologist, but ego is it's part of your identity. It's just, it's how all of the elements of you fit together, how you show up in the world, often unconsciously, and it's a way of keeping you quite safe. It's, you know, it's so bound into your, um, as I say, it's so bound into your identity and who you are. And I think one of the aspects around leadership is that as you develop and you grow, you start to pick up role models and behaviors because it helps you to succeed. So you grab a little bit of that and you grab a little bit of that and you grab a little bit of that. You know, it's the equivalent of, you know, putting on a different lipstick or putting on bigger shoulder pads or, you know, but actually kind of at that level of self. So we all do develop this ego part of us that we use to present who we are, as how people see us, but it's not necessarily the true us.
Hmm.
That's the slight difference for me.
Yeah, it's kind of layers of protection, isn't it? And putting on, I mean, when you talk about Donald Trump and characters like Donald Trump, um, they sort of, and that inflated, they kind of make themselves so big in stature, but you can almost see underneath there's this little hidden scared person.
Yeah,
And it's
yeah,
all this bravado, and I am the, the I am the big I am. And I think the ego is very much related to our survival mode,
yeah.
staying in survival because that's what we used to have to do, is to survive. So do you think it's a set shift, and it's obviously it's wrapped around self-awareness and how you see that ego self-sabotages people. You sabotage yourself when your ego is inflated like that, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. Because you lose sight of the truth, and you know, for many leaders, I mean, I can describe from my own experience. I'd show up in a particular way, but actually the mental exhaustion of having to be somebody else all of the time, and sometimes a different person for different people, it just detracts. It takes a little bit of your energy away each time, and you lose who you are, and your relationships start to struggle because you're acting out in this role very often. Um, and I think I've mentioned before, one of my favourite writers on leadership is a guy called John C. Maxwell. And he starts to look at different levels of leadership. And again, within the business environment, you start off, you be recognised for being talented and you get promoted, and then you work out that you've got to lift the team, and then you move to a middle management role, and there's so many power games that are at play, and you want to be noticed and you want to be recognized and you want to be valued, so you emphasize all of those elements of you, so you start to pump up and reinforce, you know, that ego that's in play, because at, certainly at that level you feel like you have to be quite aggressive and defensive in your approach, and it can be, and I think it can be one of the core reasons why fewer women thrive in that space, because bullshit,
Feels yucky. Eh,
unnecessary.
yeah.
Yeah,
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 me in our previous episode with Jill Mokes, we talked a lot about authenticity and tapping into who you really are. So have definitely listened to that as well. And I also want to say it's not just people that have inflated egos, because ego kind of sneaks up on us. And as I said, like you said, it's something that keeps us safe, isn't it? So ego can keep us sitting in fear, so it self-sabotages us from reaching our goals as well.
yeah, yep,
Yeah,
yep.
yeah. So how do you keep that in check? What do you do to keep that in check?
So, um, so a few of the approaches that I've taken, you know, inviting feedback, inviting kind of a team area where you're consciously reducing your light to create space for other people. That's, and to hear ideas and hear places where you might be wrong, or be curious about how other people solve problems. It's not always from your perspective. So sometimes just switching the focus from you to we for other people can be hugely effective. Uh, One of the most incredible ways that I've found actually to keep your ego in check is to unlearn and to deliberately become a beginner at something. You cannot have a strong identity or something if you're at the very beginning of your journey. So for me, that was learning silversmithing and jewelry, something I was curious about, had no clue about, and this metal just would not, no matter how much I hammered it, it was not doing what it was meant to do. And that can be hugely humiliating, humbling. Um, when you think, right, well, no, I can talk to 400 people on stage. I can do spreadsheets on spreadsheets on spreadsheets. Why won't this poxy bit of silver do what I want? And so experiences like that, where you are at the polar opposite of your talent, to remind you that you know, you're not a superstar, rock star, genius in all walks of life, can be hugely refreshing as well. Um, I think, kind of many people get it right when they say don't take yourself too seriously.
Hmm.
At times, it's rest and reflection that help you realize that perhaps you are following that identity, following that ego person rather than being your true self.
Hmm.
But and that would be a tip, but it's not as easy to quickly achieve when you're in that state.
No, because a lot of people also don't know who they are underneath all those protective layers.
Yeah.
Um, yes, and when you say about the ask your team, allow others to come forward with ideas, shine the light on, take the light off you and shine it on people around you. That just feels so much easier as well. You're sort of taking, you're not carrying everything on your shoulders and taking responsibility, all the responsibility. Because I know women, especially, we're really good at that. Oh, I'll let me take that. Oh, I'll do that. Let me carry that. And we just get so weighed down and we lose our energy, don't we, when we're constantly, do it my way or the highway kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's like
Well, and
exhausting. That feels
like
exhausting.
like you say, it's that volunteer space. But sometimes as well, if you're a strong leader, or if a different way of describing it, a strong controller, saboteur, you can't you can't abide the voids. It's just like, oh, come on, let's go, come on, come on. But one of the flip sides of that is that other people go, oh, Claire's got it. Claire's got it.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah. Yeah.
okay. She's gonna do it anyway. So
Yeah.
so it can be draining for so many reasons. Indeed, yeah.
Hmm. And
Good
I hear people in my circles and clients sort of say, "Oh, I'm the rock. I'm the rock for everybody. Everybody comes to me with their problems, and I sort of help and support them, and I'm the strong, tough rock." And that's, all of that just is exhausting and tiring and wears you down. It
And
wears you down.
it's an excellent example because it shows how you're neglecting your own needs in that.
Hmm. Mm.
Um, and for me, in my own personal journey and a journey I've seen other people go through, and particularly around burnout, you don't realize how entwined your whole identity and sense of self, becomes wrapped up in your job. So when your job's at threat, or if you've taken it to extreme and your health's at threat, you feel that you can't. And again, it's
Hmm.
because over time, this nice, comfy ego's going, look, be safe, work harder because people like that. Do this because you're safe, you're thriving, look, you're earning, it's good, it's good, it's good. And it overtakes, it kind of swamps your who you truly are, and what you love about yourself really, and what the important people love about you too.
Mm. You do, yeah. And you lose your inspiration as well, don't you? You lose that zest for life. because you become, like you say, you just become drained, exhausted. And I love that you what you said earlier about you just give a piece of you away each time.
Yeah.
And if you're not refueling and filling your cup, then yeah, you totally burn out. Yes. So how do we become more aware of being self-aware, and how has that positively impacted your decision making and interaction with your team, what team colleagues, even, well, relationships? And self-awareness is so key, isn't it,
Yeah.
to creating relationships. And
Yeah.
how does self-awareness play in this?
So very often the self-awareness exercises come through when you're at a point of transition. So if you're looking for a new job, or if you're really facing a question of, well, where do I go next, or if you're at appraisal, then you start to unpick, well, what's this year brought to me. But sometimes that makes it too difficult a too difficult an exercise. So often, what I encourage my clients to do is just spend points throughout the day, throughout the week, exploring what's worked well, or if you've tried something a bit different, how did that go? Or is spending time to reflect on the viewpoint of others, or what you've learned from others. Celebrating how you've responded, and your ability to respond can sometimes give more power to you as a person, not just the ego, because it recognizes that failure is as important as the successes. And ego doesn't always hold on to the failure because it wants to demonstrate how great it is. So, journaling, just getting outside and pausing, just capturing um, the small improvements, or the small challenges, or the small surprises that have come through, and noticing those. Again, kind of a lot of these exercises externalize your thoughts. Don't keep you stuck in your head. Within conflict as well, for example, you can, and I think it's the game that we've talked about before, which is the 10% game. You can start to look at somebody who's opposite to you and go, well, they're 10% right. Let's find the 10% right, and then let's build on that. So if you're more of an intellectual person rather than a journal it out person, have a look at some of those extremes, and start working out how people fit with you, not just how you fit in the world. And again, that shift from the internal to external uh, brings a lot more awareness of your own true thoughts, of your own kind of balanced, reflective place.
Mm. And I think what you said earlier is a sort of you, just how people, you mentioned about how people react or interact with you is always a good reflection of how you are.
Yeah, yeah, for
Like, because
sure.
everybody, I mean, we hear it, but don't necessarily understand it. Everybody around us is a mirror. So looking at other people's behavior around you can be a reminder of how you're behaving or not behaving,
Mhm.
your behavioral. Um, and somebody said something to me, I think this might be really helpful. Somebody said to me, if somebody's winding you up, or you take a dislike to somebody in terms of, or they do something, it was more about that they do something that really annoys you, take a look at yourself and see if you're doing that behavior. You
It's the resonance, because it's creating a discord, but actually it's telling you something. It's telling you something about your value set, or what your so very often as well, you might find this with a new relationship, or it's come up in a Facebook thread. Why is it people come back from my past, and I really haven't got anything in common with them? actually it's not about that person, it's because they're distancing themselves from their past self. They're kind of going, oh no, that person that I was, I'm not that person now. But they're kind of going, it's that person. It's not that. It's yeah, it's quite it's not
There's yeah, it's
ownership there.
yes, yeah, it's sort of reminding you that there might be a behavior that you're still doing that you need to look at. So what
Yeah.
practice yeah, what practices and strategies um do you use which continually enhance your self-awareness as a leader? We
So
talked about some, but I think that there's more to it than that.
yeah, um, so when I've talked about saboteurs in the past, for example, we've talked a lot about some of the disruptive behaviours throughout the day. Um, so, I think the one that I like the most is the eyebrow trick because it works on video. And if you look at somebody's eyebrow for 5-10 seconds, if you're in a heated argument, and notice the colour of their eyebrow, the shape of the eyebrow, the texture of the hair, and then come back. And sometimes just distracting disrupting your thought process to come back and recenter weakens the ego a little bit because it hasn't got its grip quite as strongly on you. So being able to disrupt those thought processes with sensory hacks is a great way.
So so you're distracting the mind away from what's getting you going and ready to sort of inflate yourself and push yourself on somebody. You're
Yeah.
distracting yourself by looking this but by looking at somebody's eyebrow instead of to give your brain, your mind a break and to be able to go off onto another highway. Is
To
that
stop the chatter. Yeah,
mm,
yeah. So the ego will be the little self-talk that goes, "Yeah, look, you're right, they're wrong. You're right, you're right." Whereas actually, kind of you by disrupting it, you can come back and think, like, how logically, rationally, compassionately, how do I want to respond here? What's the long-term goal? Because particularly with conflicts, you can get heated. Emotion can take over. You can do it as well. When you open up an email and kind of you've got like a lot more work to do, or you're just feeling yes. You can use those sensory hacks to perhaps listen to the furthest away thing that you can hear, listen to the closest thing. And again, it's just this habit of small 5 to 10 second micro moments of mindfulness that allow you to tap back into your true self. We don't all have
mm.
time to do a 10-minute or a 20
No.
minute meditation, which is an excellent practice in this. But adding more stops throughout the day can help.
And 5 seconds can be sometimes all you need to distract that synapsis, that brainwave, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah, to
yeah,
reset your mind. You go, hang on a minute. And also a breath. I'm sure you use it anyway, just taking a breath and focusing on the breath and maybe focusing on the noise of that breath. Like you say, listen to something closer and what's closer than your breath or your heartbeat.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
absolutely.
I'm just when you
Um,
said about looking at somebody's eyebrow, I was just thinking, but if they've got really bushy, big eyebrows, you might start laughing. That's really terrible. But I was just thinking of Dennis
conflict.
Healy. Dennis Healy. I don't know who a lot of listeners, people our age will remember Dennis Healy, but younger listeners maybe not so much.
Mm. Um, I think other areas can be around curiosity as well,
Hmm.
and starting to ask people. So one of the best exercises ever done, and it's one that I often recommend, is ask people for a word that describes you, and they will surprise you with what they say. Don't ask your brothers or your sisters; they'll just take the piss.
Yeah, they will.
um,
I've done it, and they did.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um, but but genuinely ask people that are close to you, that people are maybe who you're not sure notice you, but they're kind of like 2 or 3 steps removed, and ask them, for just 1 or 2 words that they would use to sum you up. Um, and make a point of asking 10, 15, 20 people so you're getting a spread of views. Don't just pick the people that you like and have coffee with. Ask
Although
people that you think
that is
are
helpful
quite
though, if you
ambivalent.
that is helpful when you want to feel confident and feel, that that's a very helpful tool to use. You talk to your super fans or the people that, that do love you. Um, but
Yeah,
yes, I
sure.
have a word for you, Claire. Well, two words I think for you, just to give the listeners an example. So 2 words. I mean, I know Claire pretty well. Um, Probably 3 words. Curious, number one. Claire is curious about everything, and it's an amazing trait to have. Um, incredibly generous, and wise. They would be 3 words that sprung to mind when I
Oh.
think of you. You don't need to
So
You don't need to reciprocate.
question. Well, my you see all those. Anyway, but the generous. Uh, um, but it's a simple exercise. It makes you feel hugely vulnerable because you're not sure how people will respond, and even if you're, I don't know, Jennifer Lopez, you're going to be worried about what people are going to say. There's going to be a level of insecurity in going through that exercise. But one of the benefits of it is that you see kind of so many rounded elements of who you are and how you're showing up. And if there are some elements in there that's like strike a nerve, they're cues. And then you can choose whether or not that is truly you or if it's your ego. And if it's your ego and doesn't belong to you, then adjust it,
Mm,
overcome it,
mm,
kind of create your own misinformation. So it's not really the true me. How do I shift that? Don't get
mm.
trapped.
Talking of Lo, you mentioned
Mm,
Lo. She's a really good example because she used to. And most actresses and certainly models do. They're the most insecure people in the world because they're constantly in front of a camera or,
yeah,
yeah, video, like moving video camera or still. And she was always really focused on her body and then what people thought and what people said. And she nearly gave up being the center of, her universe. She nearly gave up being a singer and an actress and then the other things, dancer. Because of the backlash that she was constantly getting about comments about her backside, comments about her figure, comments about her just putting her down, that she's just, she's not got much gumption to her. Um and she realized, actually, I have a I have a purpose, and that purpose is to bring the Latino female, to help empower Latino women like me. And so she made all of that totally unimportant, and she became very self-aware of the purpose that she had and what she could do and the power that she had to inspire and influence and assist other Latino girls and women. So
yeah.
I don't.
Well, and there's a huge read across. There's a huge read across into the layers of leadership as well. So, remember I talked about middle managers and kind of that being a bit of a battleground. But
Mm,
the way that you um, transgress or transcend to the next layer of a level of leadership is to start to think about the corporate whole, the team that you're in, the business that you're in, helping others, because when you help others, the whole business thrives. And then you move up to the next level, which starts to look at, um, identifying and growing talent throughout an organization to help an organization to have a lifespan beyond your own career. And the next level goes to community and the impact that the business and your leadership has on the broader community. So at each layer, you're focusing less on your own personal needs and more on what is what's the long term need me to do right now? What does the world need me to do right now? And your Dalo example is just beautiful. It really covers whether it's conscious or not, it really covers that growth.
Mm, yeah. Yeah, she's a shining example. She's actually there's a documentary on Netflix, so if you want to know a little bit more,
Uh
she's a shining example.
Never, 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 never. Well, the other aspect around models and actresses and uh, their fragile sense of self. Sorry, Enzo, um, is around the amount of rejection, and people don't often really realise kind of how much rejection actors face and how many times they get turned down. And even Beyonce, she'll describe how in the Grammys, everyone celebrates that she's had 24 Grammys. They don't celebrate the 26 times she's been sat there and not one. All
Mm,
those failures, like
mm,
oh,
mm.
oh. So very often the ego can thrive in the sense of success, but be mortally wounded at failure. You know, but actually, there's growth, there's love, there's compassion at both extremes. You take the time to
And
realize.
yeah, and looking at failure from a different space, having a different mindset around failure, in that failure is a stepping stone to success.
Yep.
As you say, it's growth that helps you evolve. So I see that mistakes are never mistakes, or a failure is never, as we deem a failure, is a failure. It's a stepping stone. It's part of our evolvement and our, as you say, as growth into something even better.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So how do you balance? So we're talking about ego and the need of confidence and assertiveness in leadership. So how do you balance that confidence and assertiveness with the importance of being humble, and a willingness to learn from others?
So
Love that question.
there's there's definitely again kind of another. I'm sharing all of my tactics and all of my tricks now, but one of
Not
the
all
things
of
that I
them.
do with one of the things I do with a lot of clients is identify leaders and identify leadership styles that you admire and pull them through. And for me, there are some really strong leaders who lead with grace. So look at Jackie Kennedy, or some of the really strong female political leaders, or the monarchy, who have a a unspoken power base. So don't get drawn into massive plays for confidence, but hold confidence. They consciously choose when they talk and when they act, not for attention. So, Queen Elizabeth against, I don't know, some YouTuber trying to grow their channel. You couldn't get different personalities. But there's there's this aspect of um, you know, handling, being resilient to the challenges that come through, letting them drop away from you. Don't hold on to them. Just let them drop away from who you are and stay centered on who you are. Be consistent with around your team in terms of that confidence. Know your boundaries and the boundaries that people should hold around you in terms of behavior. So, stop poor behavior, stop it, whether it's actively within the room or outside the room.
Sorry, Claire, can
Again,
you repeat what you just said? Because I didn't quite get stop
uh,
what behavior?
if you spot behavior
Oh,
around you,
spot behavior. Sorry, I
yeah,
thought you said stop.
that oh, yeah, spot then stop. If you spot behavior, pull it up. The boundaries that you see people cross around you that go against your role modeling of how you develop your team, how you want to grow. So it could be pettiness or bitchiness or you
Gossip.
know, gossip or negativity. Either if it's appropriate, stop it in the room and stop it in the room. If not, go to one side. I noticed this. Again, kind of don't seek to humiliate people, but make sure that they know that they've crossed the line, and that picks up their behavior. But it's elevating you as a leader, as a strong leader that's choosing your moments. Um, in terms of confidence, and this from the many women that you work with, spending time understanding who you truly are shifts your power base from here. And when you act from here, when you show up from here, you're intoxicating. The confidence comes through at a different frequency, a different level, and people respond to it. So, again, kind of try to spend as much time as you can in that calm space and act. Um, so none of that is actually around a big I am or big push, 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 push. It's around having a presence to be you, to understand you, and to come from that place in meetings or in conversations or in on stage. Those are really key, I think.
Yeah. And Cindy Ashton, with Cindy Ashton, we talk about speaking from your power.
Yeah,
And she talks a lot about not pushing, pushing, pushing. She talks about speaking from your power, and your power with feminine power comes from our root chakra. So it's right at the base of our bodies. And she talks about tuning in and tapping into that in the episode that we did. I think it's just called Speak from Your Power. So yeah, that it the energy of that feels so different. It's like you're calmer. You're not desperate, you're not pushing, you're not struggling, you're not striving. It's much more of a gentler, graceful, as you said earlier, it's a graceful energy.
yeah,
And yeah, people will respect you from, and also by leading from example as well, which we've spoken about in a couple of the other episodes. It does. People have will react to you differently. I remember in my crazy days, I was really extrovert. I mean, I was really out there, and I was sort of, I was a team leader and a manager, but I was really out there and push, come on, rah, rah, rah. And I was in a sales environment.
yeah,
And it was a lot of fun, but the energy of where I am now, it's just, literally a different person. And when you do that as well, from an energetic point of view, from your energy, it it has that amazing impact, doesn't it, on your energy. And it doesn't,
yeah,
you're not taking, people aren't taking pieces of you, or you're not giving pieces of you.
yeah. So for women, Karen Brady again. Nobody's going to say that Karen Brady isn't confident or assertive, but actually she epitomizes this uh, sense of awareness, sense of grace, and I think it's something um, that is innate within women, but we often rush around pleasing everybody else that we lose kind of our connection to that.
And actually, another leader that's coming up in the US at the moment, Marianne Williamson, who's
Yeah,
running for president, her energy. And another person I think is Obama's wife, Michelle Obama,
Michelle. Yeah,
has that similar, doesn't she?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of people in your life, isn't there? If you look around the people in your life, that if you notice the people that are quietly confident but have this draw, and it's not necessarily to copy them, but just to notice how they are, how they be.
Yeah. And yeah, very often it can confuse people with a very short term, profit driven, attack, attack, attack. And so, kind of the approach isn't an easy route. You'll find, oh, you're altruistic, or, but again, consider long term value, sustainability, reach to community, loyalty, kind of many of these characteristics outlive a drive for profit and outlive fear based. They come from this sense of calm in spirit power, really. Yeah.
So how do you encourage leaders to so the world that's always talking about oh, values outward success, values, oh, the job that you have, the money that you have, the car that you drive, the house you drive. How do you encourage leaders to then prioritize their own inner growth and self-awareness?
I genuinely believe that the world is shifting. I, when you look at how next generations are coming through, and they're fighting for rights of more people, they're considerate of the planet, they're not necessarily looking for profit at all costs. There's a genuine shift in attitudes that is starting to reject some of those old norms. So it's not completely the case yet. There are still a lot of bros around, and
A lot of bros.
there's a lot of, and I think kind of a lot of fear or oh crikey, what's the opposite? What's the opposite of abundance? I've lost the word now.
Lack.
Um, yes,
Lack.
that fear and lack drives that behaviour. So it's not a utopia yet, but I do think that it's shifting. I do think as well that for many leaders, just knowing actually, if you're a Gen Xer, we don't have to put up with that anymore. We don't, where does this belief come from? Because don't have to be that person. And very often you can then find people that break that mold and go, well, how do they do it? And it
Mm.
it is doable. Um, I encourage people to take breaks, and obviously a coaching session is an opportunity for reflection and step back in its own right. Retreats are a brilliant opportunity, but taking those breaks to stop, not be caught between meeting after meeting after meeting after meeting, or in report or in emails, stopping and pausing and reflecting are some of the most important activities that you can do. I mean, Warren Buffett famously spends most of his day reading, as does Bill Gates. And again,
Mm.
yeah, they're absorbing the knowledge, but actually they're tapping into wisdom. They're learning how to ask questions. They're learning to apply what they're learning to their own lives or the lives of people around them. But that you have to create the space in order to do that, to disrupt the frenetic energy.
Yes, disrupts the phonetic energy so yes. It's almost like it disrupts the frantic energy.
Yeah,
Frantic
yeah,
phonetic, isn't it? It does. It really does.
yeah.
Anything else you'd like to add, Claire?
It's just really around, for me, this topic is so important because I see so many examples, and a lot of senior leaders and a lot of senior women leaders kind of bring so much ego to the fore, and it just feels like it's a short term recipe to burnout or alienation, or kind of it's not working. And when you spend time with those leaders, you see so much more. There's so much more to them that's not coming through because they don't allow space. So this is a mission that I'm taking forward, for sure, as we go forward. And if any of this resonates with people, or if you want to find different ways uh, of bringing the woo without bringing the woo, then reach out for sure.
Mm, I love that. Creating space. It is creating space is I would just is so key and important. Thank you for bringing that up. Um, and giving yourself permission to do that as well, isn't it? Allowing yourself to do that.
Well, I'd say to listeners, if they want to subscribe and have 45 minutes that's just themselves, then subscribe. And listen to what we say, of course you can. But if you're hiding yourself away and daydreaming and thinking about what's going on, equally, that's okay. Just keep
Mhm,
moving the world
mm,
forward.
mhm. And keep moving the world forward. Love that. Thank you very much, Claire. Thank you very much for listening. And next week we celebrate. Oh my God, Claire, I can't believe this. We are celebrating our full year of podcasting. Um,
Okay, goose.
I know
Oh, sorry.
it's
Uh,
52, well, 52 episodes have just been, yeah, we're just about to publish our 52nd episode. So this next
yeah.
week, no, sorry, I'm saying next week is our um 52nd episode, but it's not. We would be doing a live, but we'd have already done it because we're recording. I'm
Don't give away
such
the magic.
no. So listen. So if you haven't listened to our live about our celebration of year, and there'll be all sorts of tips about stepping into your power and just getting on and doing something and impacting and making a difference. So celebrate with us. Thank you very much for listening. Like, subscribe, and share. And till next time. Bye bye.
Bye.